You know, I had a bunch of really fun ideas for this week's video. We could have talked about the upcoming Oscars, the new Taylor Swift record, that stupid Jake Paul fight over the weekend. I had so many Pete Davidson jokes locked in the chamber. But Sunny with a Chance just had to open her big trap the other day. So now we're going to talk about the peachy subject of eating disorders. Here's the long and short of it. Over the weekend, Demi Lovato stopped by the Los Angeles frozen yogurt joint, The Big Chill, and apparently the experience was very unpleasant. Here's a direct quote from her Instagram story. Finding it extremely hard to order froyo from @TheBigChillOfficial when you have to walk past tons of sugar-free cookies / other diet foods before you get to the counter. Do better, please. Hashtag diet culture vultures. She follows that message up with this one, quote, "So I think I'm going to have to make that hashtag a thing. I will be calling harmful messaging from brands or companies," not sure if the spelling is intentional there, "that perpetuate," okay, the spelling definitely isn't intentional, "a society that not only enables but praises disordered eating." Again, with the hashtag diet culture vultures, this time with an eagle emoji. What is she talking about? Well, it turns out this phrase, diet culture, has been bandied about in eating disorder circles for several years now. If you go to the website for the National Eating Disorders Association, you can read about what that group describes as the harmful tenets of diet culture. For example, and again, I'm quoting, "Diet culture conflates size and health, pathologizing some body sizes." Another one, "Diet culture encourages following external rules about what, when, and how much to eat." Diet culture suggests that people are more or less good / moral / worthy based on their body size. Again, the website goes on from there. In other words, society has both explicitly and implicitly created a negative stigma against certain body types and diets. And according to folks with anorexia and bulimia, these messages can exacerbate the effects of eating disorders. For example, when a natural cookie is described as guilt-free, the implication is that you're supposed to feel guilty about eating other kinds of cookies. Obviously, people with eating disorders already feel guilty about eating all kinds of foods, so you can understand why that kind of advertising would be upsetting. Well, evidently, Demi Lovato is one of those people. She has struggled with bulimia since the age of 18. She's been very open about that. And when she encountered some triggers at The Big Chill, she decided to take out her frustrations on social media. And when the froyo shop messaged her privately to address some of her concerns, the outrage only intensified. Here's what The Big Chill wrote in a DM, quote, "We are not diet vultures. We cater to all of our customers' needs for the past 36 years. We are sorry you found this offensive." Demi responds, "You can carry things for other people while also caring for another percentage of your customers who struggle daily just to even step foot in your store. You can find a way to provide an inviting environment for all people with different needs, including eating disorders, one of the deadliest mental illnesses, only second to opioid overdoses. Don't make excuses, just do better." Okay, so there are a plethora of ways to approach this story, if you even want to call it a story. And most of those ways are either explicitly political or just downright lazy. Like, we could talk about how Demi is using her platform to pick on a small business in the middle of a pandemic, which is not exactly incorrect, but that kind of talk belongs on bumper stickers, not this show. Instead, we're going to make this conversation a little more nuanced by calling someone that actually suffers from an eating disorder and getting his opinion. So let's get him on the line right now. That's odd. Someone calling me on my invisible phone? Hello? Yes, I do indeed have an eating disorder, which means for the first time in the history of this program, I am uniquely qualified to run my yap about something. Now, let's be very clear at the jump. I do not have the same disorder as Demi Lovato, and that is very important. I suffer from this thing called Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, ARFID for short. You can look it up. I've had it my entire life. And the easiest way to describe it is an extreme fear to most foods based on very arbitrary characteristics: smell, color, texture, even certain brands can be extremely off-putting to me. I've never had a slice of pizza. I've never had a steak. I've never even tasted celery, and that's actually putting it mildly. Up until about 3 years ago, I used to eat 2 large McDonald's French fries every single day because it was one of my very few safe foods. Up until that point, I had never even tasted another brand of French fry. The Burger King was like Freddy Krueger to me. I love French fries. I've always loved French fries. But for over 22 years, McDonald's was the only appetizing option. And as you can imagine, the list of other safe foods is incredibly small. Most fruits like blueberries and grapes are sweet enough and have a smooth texture. Most dry snack foods are acceptable as long as they taste bland and have a lot of salt. But again, only certain flavors. No honey barbecue chips, no cheddar goldfish. Just the plain stuff. Most cheeses are out except for Land O'Lakes American, and it has to be cut very thick, and you have to cut it the same day that I eat it or else it's too crunchy. Some candy is okay, ice cream too. I don't really have a problem with beverages, but again, I limit those to only the very sweet or the very bland. And what happens when I try to branch out? Well, I usually gag it up like a contestant on Fear Factor drinking goat semen. Actually, that's the perfect way to visualize it. Imagine your lasagna is goat semen. This happened when I was 9 years old and drank a glass of milk. This happened when I was a teenager and tried a carrot for the first time. In fact, just a year ago, I tried some homemade chicken, almost threw that up. Haven't tried any meat since then. Have I made my point? I'm a lunatic. Now again, I have to emphasize this. I do not know what it's like to experience bulimia. I've never had it, but I do know what it's like to have an intense, irrational reaction to normal everyday food items. This is not foreign to me. I have an excruciating time going to restaurants, sitting around the family dinner table, because I hate being around unsafe foods. The smell of rice, a drop of sauce, breadcrumbs on the table, it all bothers me. If there's food around, the world becomes a house of horrors. And obviously that's going to have a negative impact on your social life when you consider that most meaningful socialization is situated around food. Imagine being the one guy that doesn't kick in for lunch at the office, or the one kid in the high school cafeteria whose mom packs him a lunch of Utz potato chips and a sleeve of saltines every single day. And yes, dating can be especially difficult. Now, lucky for me, I am insanely handsome and also quite charming with the females. But imagine trying to order food on your first date. For the lady, we have the shrimp sauteed in garlic butter with a side of roasted mushrooms and saffron and a glass of our finest Chardonnay. And for the gentleman, a bag of Snyder's pretzel rods and a Pepsi with a bendy straw. Not fun. In a world where breaking bread is our most basic ritual, I too often feel like an alien. So although I've never starved myself or made myself throw up, I do know exactly how Demi Lovato feels when she says the culture of food triggers her. My whole life, I've felt shame for my disorder. I try to hide it from strangers, avoid it with my close family and friends. I can't tell you how many relatives have scolded me over the years for not eating healthier, how many friends have downplayed the disorder as less severe than it actually is. I remember vividly a few years ago, I was in a room with people that I was mostly meeting for the first time. And when I got done explaining to them my condition, one especially snarky guy responded, "I think the scientific term for what you have is picky." And I mean, he's not wrong. None of those people in my life are wrong. Insensitive? Maybe. But there's no doubt in my mind that I have a mental illness. And there's also no doubt that the highly processed, highly caloric foods I put into my body are detrimental to my health and will most likely shave off a few years of my life. It is called an eating disorder because it is an abnormal disease. So labeling it as such, even with language that is a little less than tactful, is still correct. But the point of this is not to give you a lesson on the food pyramid. The point is Demi Lovato and her alleged offense at the sugar-free yogurt. Was she in the wrong? Well, it sure seems that way. This is one of those stories about privileged celebrities and woke culture that's ginned up on social media in order to elicit maximum outrage. And I totally understand why a millionaire whining about froyo would grind your gears. I've been there myself more than a few times. But I've also been in Demi's shoes. I understand mental illness. I understand triggers. I understand getting offended by stuff that most people find mundane. You know, in situations like this, a certain segment of the population will start decrying oversensitivity. They'll talk about how society has gotten too soft, that the outrage machine has run amok. But the thing about offense is that it's not an active process. It's instinctual. It's primal. It occurs when your rational brain clashes with your irrational brain. Can offense be exaggerated, even faked, in order to score some empathy points? Hell yeah. I went to a liberal arts school in New England. I know all about this too, trust me. But the vast majority of people don't choose to be offended. It just happens to them. Often it's a weight that they carry with them their entire lives. I would love nothing more than to sit at the Thanksgiving dinner table without being set off by a bowl of gravy. I just don't have that firm a grasp on my own psyche, at least not yet. But here's the important part. There is a difference between the stuff that is objectively offensive and the stuff that only offends you. And I know I just contradicted myself. Offense is inherently relative. And I can go down that rabbit hole of universal ethics. I can quote some Mad Nietzsche for you right now. Just spitting all kinds of bars about German philosophy. But I'll just assume that you know what I mean when I say there's the morally repugnant stuff that any sane human being would find offensive, and then there's the stuff that only certain people find offensive based on their unique world experience. Genocide. Some people do it, but it's objectively offensive, whereas Dave Chappelle joking about genocide may only be offensive to certain people. Now, credit where credit is due, Demi did apologize on Instagram yesterday, albeit a bit half-heartedly. The video mostly focused on her blunt communication style, and although she admits she could have handled the situation differently, she didn't really walk back her comments on the Big Chill's sugar-free options. But there was one line towards the end of that video that kind of bothered me.
Someone once told me, you can be a celebrity and get it right every day of your life, but you get it wrong one day, and that's what people focus on. And that's what people are focusing on today, and that's okay, because tomorrow I'm still going to live my truth. I'm still going to get up and meditate and do what I need to do to stay centered.
Living my truth, a hot phrase these days, very popular in self-help circles. The bumper sticker crowd loves it, but it's also a total oxymoron because truth is objective. It's singular. You cannot possess it. There's no such thing as my truth, only my perspective. The planet Earth has exactly one version of the truth, but 7 billion different perspectives on it. This is a problem that we've been facing for the past 5 or 6 years as society has put a premium on sensitivity. Now, for the most part, those efforts are incredibly noble. But because offensiveness is not universal, the wires get crossed. And in an effort to satisfy some sensitivities, you may trigger other ones. Because she wanted to live her truth, Demi Lovato publicly expressed outrage at diet culture. And she's allowed to do that. No one is denying her perspective or her right to voice it. But by slamming the froyo place, she didn't take into consideration that diabetics require sugar-free options, that vegans require alternatives to dairy. Demi Lovato's ideal froyo shop is even more triggering to other people. So ironically enough, in an effort to promote sensitivity, she showed a total disregard for it. If you really want to know what our current cultural divide stems from, this is it. We lack a strong universal ethic. And that would be okay if we were able to differentiate objective truths from subjective beliefs. But we can't. We've thrown it all in a bag, jumbled it up, and now we treat our personal triggers as though everyone else has the same ones. Hop on Twitter, search for a hot button political topic, you'll see exactly what I mean. Where I have to hand it to Demi is that it seems like she has her eating disorder under control, which is a lot more than I can say for myself. And I'll repeat this again for the legal team. I do not suffer from bulimia, and Demi is far more qualified to talk about treatment than I am. But when coping with my issues, I've tried lashing out at society. I've tried blaming the world for my own irrationality, acting like my point of view is the only one that matters. I don't recommend it. As an exercise in narcissism, it can feel quite cathartic. But as a way of making yourself and the world better, it's catastrophic. I truly hope that Demi Lovato continues to defeat the demons that she's fighting. She has my unwavering sympathy and support. Eating disorders create a sense of powerlessness, and fighting that takes a tremendous amount of courage. But froyo is not the enemy. The big chill is not the enemy. The disorder is the enemy. and defeating it requires you to search inward, not what's around you. I can't speak for the star of Camp Rock. I can only speak for myself. And I plan on doing that next week. Same time, same place, here on Cultured. Hope you're there for that.